welcome to Aussie Online Growing on Shopify. This is episode 140 and it's called I've spent and managed $250,000 in Meta ad spend, and this is what I've learned. I want to share today my real world experience in the last 4 years and having either spent myself or managed for clients over $250,000 in ad spend on Meta, and what I've learned from that amount of time, but also that spend over the last few years. And I hope that gives you some valuable tips and tricks and insights to take away with you in your own advertising on Meta, especially about the platform, how it's performing, what it's doing at the moment, things that are working and things that aren't working. So I've spent $250,000 roughly. I feel like I've probably spent a bit more, but I thought I should probably err on the side of caution rather than overinflate that figure. And for some of you listening, that's a crazy amount of money. And for others of you, it may not seem like a huge amount of money. But it's a lot of money for an advertising budget. And it's a lot across a lot of brands, including 2 of my own, and about half a dozen clients' brands who I manage for their ads as well. So this is like messy in the trenches stuff. I want to give you my own experiences, my own MBA, my own master's in business that I have learnt for Meta ads, what I have learnt about being a real practitioner of ads. This is not theory. This is not what Meta says is working and not working, or what some other guru says. This is truly Rachel from Adelaide, Australia, has spent and learnt and experienced in the platform in advertising for 4 years, with that budget across my own brands and other clients' brands as well. I really hope some of this advice for you is going to help save your money, like help save you money yourself in advertising on Meta, or come away with a bit more of a realistic view of the platform and how advertising works. I want you to maybe feel a bit de-influenced from all the gurus out there and what they say about the platform, or what they say about advertising and crazy revenue screenshots you see from Shopify and people's dashboards or on TikToks and things like that can make you feel a bit like perhaps you're failing or you don't know what you're doing. Take some of this experience of my own and sort of see whether some of this is true for yourself in your advertising, whether you find this true also. Otherwise, reach out to me and let me look after your ads for a month and work through some of these things with you to get you some results, some higher revenue, some new customers, some orders, and start to understand for your own brand what a good result looks like and work towards a more efficient spend on Meta. And all of my points are a reflection of what I've learned across the time in advertising, but especially with the budget and how that's been able to be allocated across hundreds of campaigns and thousands of ads in that time frame. And the first one is what I have been saying for a long time in my podcast about ads for 2025 and Meta. And if you listen to other Meta advertising marketing podcasts, you will hear the same thing as well, is that creative is king. So creative, the ads, the images, the carousels, the infographics, the copy, the caption is really king now. And it has been for several months, but it's really taken the last few months to really bite hard. And some of the old campaigns are really dying off quite significantly. In my own ad account, a campaign structure I have used for about 12 months that's always performed really well for me has kind of fallen off a cliff in the last 72 hours. And I'm not sure it's coming back. I'm not sure it's actually a blip. I think it's actually the rolling algorithm changes. And I suspect that campaign structure, that campaign type that used to be a well performer for me is now no longer going to be. So sometimes, not sometimes, it used to be that the structure was really important inside your ad account, and it is still important to a degree, but now creative is the key, is the game changer. So your audience targeting are not as important anymore. Even the structure of your account is not as important. Of course, these things still matter, and it definitely makes a difference if you want to be able to set up a creative testing strategy, if you want to be able to actually scale something, you want to actually be able to identify new versus existing customers, and you want to be able to get yourself a campaign structure that where you know you're not wasting budget in areas. So structure is still important, but now creativity and creative is the lever that is the game changer of whether you will find your ads perform or don't perform. So much so that some of this the way the platform is now feels a bit like when I first started advertising, in the sense that an ad can get some ground and traction within hours. Back in 2020, if you had an ad run for 3 hours with no sales, it was dead and you turn it off. That was like obviously not going to be any good. And then through the last several years, you have to leave campaigns running for 3 days or 5 days to really evaluate if it was worth running or not. That is still the case because the algorithm needs time to find its feet, especially depending on the budget you're spending. But a winner will show quick. So if you have an ad that has performed well for you fast, then I would suggest to you that that's worth leaning into. So if you have an ad that performed within hours, got a sale within hours, then watch it over 2 days or 3 days. And if it continues to do as well as it did in the first couple of hours, you might have found yourself a winner, which is a bit like a unicorn, but it's sort of where we all need to try and start getting to with the platform now, which is looking for winners so that those things can be scaled with a ROAS that's profitable for your business. So creative is king. I spend Tuesdays, half of Tuesday, like 5 hours maybe, sometimes longer, depending if I'm doing podcast recording like I'm doing today, creating content specifically to roll out for the next week. So I'm burning through content. I'm probably not burning through it as fast as I preach that you should. Like, I'm not taking my own advice. I probably hold on to creative a little too long. I probably hold on to it 48 hours longer than I know I should, or that I would advise a client to. So I still struggle with that as a business owner too. So if you struggle with deciding that creative is fatigued, you need to move on from the latest video you've done that you love so much, but Meta doesn't seem to like it for some reason. You're not alone. But we need to move on from creative quicker and need to test creative faster, because winners will show quick. Regular campaigns, like not evergreen, but ones that will continue to get consistent sales for you over a decent period of time. Not long, it's not long anymore, but I've had an ad that's performed well for me over 14 days, is now starting to fatigue after 14 days. It's not a winner, it wasn't a standout, and it's the cost per purchase is too high for me to scale it, but it's just ticking along and doing its job. But a winning creative I had about 3 weeks ago, within a couple of hours, quickly showed itself to be winning. And within 24 hours, it had several sales. So your winners will show faster now. That's what I've learned with creative. But your sort of every day just doing well, feeding the algorithm, performing for you in your business, getting you a good cost per result, those things still take days to identify themselves. They still need to have their runway and their data to be before you decide that they're like no. Number two is the thing I have learned in my spending $250,000 advertising on Meta, or managing clients' money advertising on Meta, is budget only magnifies things and it doesn't fix them. Budget never fixes a bad campaign. It will magnify whatever is going on. It can jolt a campaign though. So upping a budget or even dropping a budget. So whether you want to have a campaign, you want to increase the budget or decrease the budget won't solve your high cost per purchase. If you have an ad running and the cost per purchase is really high for you, and high is like, it's relative, it truly is relative depending on your AOV. It really depends on your average order value. Let's say your average order value is $100 and you have a cost per purchase of $100. That's actually to be expected when you're starting out with ads, or when you're getting a feel for your ad account, or for me with a client's ad account and learning about their account and trying to find some creatives that work for them and copy that works for them, structure that works for them. That's like an okay result to start off with. And then you need to improve from there. You've got to start somewhere and then you've got to improve from there. But if you are getting a cost per purchase of $100 and your average order value is $100, a higher budget per day won't fix that for you. You can't spend, you can't double that budget and expect it to solve that problem. There's other issues going on that need solving. It's probably just the creative. It's probably the creative that needs solving. Like in today's day and age, what I have learned is that that's going to be the solution 80% of the time. I was going to say 90, I feel like that's too high. 80% of the time, if your cost per purchase is the same as your average order value, the creative is the problem. The image and the video, the carousel, the infographic, that's the issue that you need to solve, probably not the budget. The same is true if you half a budget. So if you find that something is not doing well either, and you want to just cut it off and cut it off at the knees and see if that fixes it, it's probably not going to fix it either. The same is true though in scaling a budget. This has always been a real art. Scaling an ad in Meta is honestly a real art, because each ad account performs differently and responds differently to budget measures and budget. Hey, what's the very next step for you in growing online? If you have an e-commerce store, or you're looking for clients, you have a service-based business, you can reach out to me for one-on-one support on a project-by-project basis. I'm like an anti-agency, little mini agency on my own. I don't offer long retainer packages for brand new clients. I want you to feel confident. Well, in 2024, my revenue that came directly from email marketing was 36% of my whole revenue across the year. And my revenue for 2024 was increased 30% on 2023 results. So I'm definitely in a good position to support you. I've been told I'm the baby budget Facebook ad specialist because I can work with a very small daily budget or a large daily budget. It's really dependent on what you're looking for as a business and what your immediate goals are, that I can guide you on what is the best path towards success for your business. You can reach out to me at AussieOnlineGrowingOnShopify.com.au. In fact, you can actually put an appointment straight in my calendar. We can chat about your business for like 25 minutes about what struggles you're having, what your immediate goals are, kind of the stage of business you find yourself at. I'm really excited to have the potential to work with you. I encourage you to head to the website where you can book yourself a free discovery call, and we can chat about how I can support your business in getting the results that you need to grow online next. Signals. So I can increase the budget in one of my ad account personally in one of my campaigns by like 10 to 15% one day, and then I can leave it for 5 days and increase it again 10 to 15% and leave it for 5 days, and it scales, it holds and continues to do better, which I have done with the current campaign I have running. However, when I built an ASC, so the last time I tried Advantage Plus Shopping, which was a few weeks ago, to see how well it was going to perform for me after not having tried it for about 4 months, I built it and tried it again. And it initially out the gate did really well because it was capturing warm audiences and warm traffic, which is why it got some good results in the first 48 hours. Then after that, it started to do its work and try and find some cold audiences and cold users and start warming them up. It did a really good job. And so after a week, I upped the budget, and I did that quite aggressively. So I upped the budget, I think maybe 25%, 30% every couple of days. And after a week, it just fell off a cliff. It didn't cope with any of those budget increases, and it balked every time. The same with one of my clients' accounts. Her account, also one of the ad campaigns, scaling a budget even by a small amount every day, it just killed the results, and the results just kept increasing and increasing. The cost per result got higher and higher and higher, and it never leveled out. So this is incredibly personal. So I encourage you to take the platform at face value and go with the data, and try not to go with your heart or your feelings. If you find that increasing the budget on one of your ad campaigns completely kills it, and it honestly does happen. It happens probably more often than we like to think it should. Even though Meta says it shouldn't happen if you scale at 20%, it totally does happen. Then I encourage you to just scrap that idea and go right back to either starting your next campaign at a higher budget to begin with. And all that means is you'll test faster. So if you're going to start a campaign at a higher amount, you're just going to test it quicker. So I wouldn't feel like worried that you are opening yourself up to more risk financially or anything like that. It just means you're going to find out your results and how it's going quicker than a lower budget. So if you start your ad campaign at $20 a day, you're not going to get any results that give you any meaningful data especially if your AOV is $100 for several weeks. But if you're going to start your budget at $100 a day, you will know in about 5 days whether is data there and some good signs that you have an ad you can scale, or what ads are starting to fatigue and not doing you any favors and costing you money that you can turn off and save you that efficiency and start leaning into the creatives that are doing well. But scaling won't help. Like, scaling a budget won't help unless the offer is proven. And we have to remember, when we scale a budget in Meta, the ROAS will drop. So remember, your ROAS, when you find a winner, whatever the ROAS is, if you are going to scale it, your ROAS will drop. So a winner can only be a winner when there's room in your ROAS, or room in your cost per purchase, to absorb and handle a higher result, because the payoff is the bigger volume. So sure, you might get a purchase per day, but your current ad that you're running, you might get a purchase per day for $20 with your average order value of $60. But you can't grow a business on an order a day. So even though, yes, mathematically that makes sense and it totally works, but if you want to use ads as one of your key marketing channels to drive customers to your website, which is what Meta is so good at, then you need to be spending more than $20 a day, because you can't build a business off one sale a day of $60. That's why the creative world is so important now, so that you can start to test and find those ads that have the margin in them where you can scale them. So one of my ads that I scaled recently, and it's since died off, which happens, I think it kept going for nearly 2 weeks. So I was happy with that, but it's since died and I've turned it off. It initially had a cost per purchase of $9, and my average order value is $60. And that was cold traffic too, not warm. So top of the funnel, nobody who knew me traffic. So that was obvious. I had room to scale that, and I did quickly. I scaled it within a few days and then let it ride for about 7 days untouched. And it got me great results over those 7 days, which have now since turned off. I mean, it just feels so, you feel so sad when your ads die, when your ads fatigue. You're like, oh, that's so frustrating. It did so well. And the things that used to do well 3 years ago, we could stretch them out for months, at least a month, at least 1 month, maybe even 2. But now it just doesn't happen. There's just the platform is full of advertisers. There are more people advertising on Meta now than ever before. So our CPMs are far higher. There's far more competition for people's feeds, and people's attention spans are far shorter as well, because of the TikTokification of all social media. Everybody is looking to scroll and scroll and scroll, and you've got to capture people really quick. So if your creatives don't capture people's attention fast, the Meta's just not going to show it to anybody. So it's not going to appear in anybody's feed, which you can tell based on the CPMs and the impressions and the reach that your particular ad is getting. Remember to look at this data on the ad level as well. Don't look at this data at the campaign level. Campaign is one story, but I rarely, in fact, never, I'm going to say never, I never make a decision on a campaign at the campaign level. You need to see what's going on with the actual ads involved, not the campaign. Campaign tells you a story, but definitely not a story I would make any determinations or take any action on. You always need to go look at the ad level, sorry, not the ad set, the ad level. So number 2, creative is king. Number 1, creative is king. Number 2, budget only magnifies issues, it doesn't fix issues. Number 3, tracking is messy. We do need to embrace the fact that tracking has changed. And again, I can share about my own ad accounts. I haven't asked permission from my clients to speak about their ads specifically, but from my own ad account today, I had 3 sales come through that Meta attributed to one of my campaigns. But I know for a fact it was from Klaviyo, because I sent an email about 4 hours ago, and because the products that people ordered. So I knew that those sales were not from Meta, but Meta has decided that they are, because of the email I sent 4 hours ago, and because of the products that were in that email were the products that my customers bought. So that's not Meta's win at all, but Meta has attributed those sales to one of my campaigns. This is happening across the board, and this is why more than ever you need to look at multiple data points. You need to look inside your ads manager, your Shopify dashboard, and Google Analytics. And I love Google Analytics The main reason, I'll tell you why, the main reason I love Google Analytics is because I love to run a viewed content campaign. I'm running one at the moment for my own e-commerce brand and for one of my clients' e-commerce brands, his viewed content campaign, because it drives consistent, high quality traffic to the website. So if you are looking to get more traffic to your website, don't run a traffic campaign, run a sales objective viewed content campaign, but make sure you have Google Analytics installed, GA4, because you want to go and look at the quality of that traffic. You need to see if the percentage of engaged users is above 30%. You need to see if the events per user is at least above 7 or 8. And you need to see that those people are on your website for at least like 10 seconds. So you need to check the quality of the traffic that Meta is going to send. You can very quickly determine this for yourself, and it will quickly sort of settle. If you're worried that viewed content traffic is too expensive, I'll just run a traffic campaign. It's easier, and look at all the people on my website. Run a traffic campaign alongside a viewed content campaign and go look at the results in GA4. 9 times out of 10, you will see that the traffic coming from the traffic campaign don't even register as being on your site. In other words, they're not even there for 1 second. Like 1 second. That's what I find in my account and one of my clients' accounts, the same for him, is that traffic campaigns send completely junky, useless traffic. They're probably bots. They may not be people. I have no idea who they are, but they're not worth my money. They're not worth the time on my website. They're not worth cluttering up my metrics in Shopify of my sessions, and they're certainly not worth muddying up my pixel and my ad account. So I'd encourage you to lean into the fact that data is messy, attribution is messy. Just make sure you don't take Meta's attribution as the whole story, because it's never the whole story. But the amount you're spending on Meta versus what your revenue is in Shopify versus what your margins are and your profit are, that's the real story. That's the numbers you need to be relying on, not just the sales that Meta says it's getting for you, especially if you sent an email a few hours prior. Then you can be pretty confident it wasn't Meta at all. Number 4, high touch wins in 2025. This is my anti-guru spiel. So I have seen many a TikTok, many a reel all about how Meta and ads in 2025 and Advantage Plus shopping, the AI algorithm and Andromeda and whatever else AI stuff is going on with Meta is easier than ever to advertise, and you just need to set up a very simple campaign, follow the steps and let it ride. I think it's the worst advice. I genuinely do. And that's not just because I do this for a living and I don't want to lose all my clients to them just setting up an ad and not having me do the strategy for them and look after the ad account for them. But it's not always going to work. In fact, it rarely works. And by working, I mean profitable for you. Meta will get you sales. 100%. Set up some ads, follow the steps, set up an Advantage Plus shopping campaign, put some some creatives in there and leave it alone. And let Meta spend it. Meta will spend it for you. There's no doubt about it. But how much they're going to spend to get you a sale is like how long is a piece of string. And unless you across your numbers, unless you give Meta some parameters, or unless you know what you can afford to spend to get a customer, you may find that's a surefire way to burn through thousands of dollars inside like a month or two if you're not paying attention to what's going on. I actually believe now more than ever, Meta is high touch in an ad campaign. You need to be in there often, checking the metrics, building new creative, testing different audience or campaign structures, especially if Advantage Plus shopping is expensive for you. You need to go back and try some of the traditional structures, deciding if you want to have a middle of funnel campaign or you want to let Advantage Plus shopping scoop up or the middle of funnel for you, and how much you want to spend across how many campaigns and across how many creatives, and then how long you're going to leave them run for. What metrics do you even look at to decide if it's doing well or not? Because you may find you think an ad is performing terribly because there's no sale on it and you turn it off. But what if that ad only spent $12 in the last 7 days and the click-through rate on that ad was 3% and it had 3 ads to cart? That's actually a very successful ad, but because it's caught up with the bunch of other ads that you have running, because Meta needs a lot, you turned it off because you thought it wasn't doing any good. But actually, the opposite is true. And unless you're in your account a lot and you understand these metrics, I think you will find it could be a recipe for serious disappointment and feel like ads just don't work. Ads just don't work for me. I can't get ads to work for me. But that might just be because you don't know what metrics you need to look at. So, FYI, if you have an ad that spent $12 in the last 7 days and it's had 3 ads to cart and 3% of the people seeing it are clicking through to your website, that's a really good ad. There's some seriously good signs there. It needs some more budget. That ad just needs more time or more budget to see if it's going to perform for you or not, because it's spent too little over the period of time. Like the amount that the ad has spent is too small to make any sort of determinations about whether it's good or not. But so many gurus online to talk about just like the autopilot of Advantage Plus shopping, like just turn it on and leave it. It's such terrible advice. And it's always advice from people, it's not their money. Do you know, like, I'm a business owner. This is my money I spend for my own ad account. And I take the money that I manage for my clients' accounts really seriously, because I am trying to grow my e-commerce store as well. I'm not just the guru who's a marketing agency. I'm like a one-person meta ads agency on my own. But I also am growing an e-commerce store. So I also understand spending the money is a serious business. And I want to be paying attention to the metrics. And you do too. So don't just build an Advantage Plus shopping campaign and let it ride for weeks and weeks on end without looking at the metrics and having some I guess parameters to decide for yourself when to stop, when's enough, when is enough, how long does that piece of string need to be before you decide if it's doing well for you or not well for you. So that's my bit of a spiel about all the talk about the autopilot of ads in 2025. It just drives me a little bit nuts. So you actually will get better results in your ad account now more than ever by being in it often and looking at it often. Don't touch stuff every day. You don't need to be touching things all the time, but you need to be across the data and understand what you're looking at, because sometimes things don't work. So like I said, Advantage Plus shopping just might not work for you. And by the sense of not work being too expensive, I'm not spending $100 on a new customer. That's crazy amount of money. I've got too much data in my account. I've run ads for 4 years on this one pixel. There's no way I'm spending above $100 to get a customer for the first time. But for your brand, it might make sense. So what's your average order value? Do people need a long time to consider? Are they going to come back again? Like if you sell wedding dresses, they're probably not going to come back very often. So potentially you want to be spending more to get that person through, or less to get that person through, because you can't get them to buy again. My customers come back often. I've actually dropped my returning customer rate. I did a whole series of episodes late last year about trying to reduce my returning customer rate in the lead up to Black Friday because it was really high. And it's definitely dropped this year. I've got it down to 50%. It was 80, which is crazy, crazy high. So now my returning customer rate is 50%, which I'm really comfortable with considering I sell consumables. So it makes sense but I'm stoked with 50%. It's really good. 80% was not sustainable. I was starting to, that pool of people at 80% is getting too small. It wasn't enough new people coming in. So that's another side of the point though. So number 4, high touch wins in 2025, and that includes your creative and refreshing your creatives as well. So watching the performance, looking at the strategy, layering different campaign types if you want to test some different ones and see what works best for your brand and your pixel and the data in your account and your niche and all of that sort of stuff, and the country. All of these things make a difference. But also refreshing creatives regularly. You need to be in your account often to be able to create new creative and launch new creative as well. Remember, Meta is a creative-led platform now. We need to be creative-led business owners in advertising on Meta, not just marketing first, but creative-led first. Lazy ad accounts will die off this year. An account that sits there with an ad that runs for weeks and weeks or months and months will just fatigue. The results will just blow out. It'll be a complete waste of money if you're not in there checking the data and seeing what's going on and launching new creative often. Number 5, retargeting is just a slice of the pie, not the whole pie. One thing I see with clients, it's a tendency, I have to stop myself doing it too because it feels so enticing, is not scaling your middle of funnel accounts. So your retargeting accounts, like your retargeting campaigns, don't scale them. There is very rare circumstances where you would scale a middle of funnel campaign, but it can feel like you really want to because the results look so good. And I've fallen into this so many times over the years. You just keep creeping the budget up on a middle of funnel campaign. You have like a campaign running that's retargeting your traffic, and you've suddenly got a cost per purchase of $6 or I don't know, $20, depending on your AOV. And it's super tempting to just double that budget and just lean hard into that retargeting campaign and start hitting your warm traffic more often. That's a quick sugar hit. That's not going to last long because the frequency is going to skyrocket really fast. And sometimes the frequency, when you do that, you can't claw back. One thing I have learned in my $250,000 of spend on Meta in the last 4 years is that sometimes a campaign runs away with itself. It circles the drain and you cannot rescue it. So sometimes, even if you do find your frequency has creeped up to like a 15, which is nuts. If your middle of funnel campaign is like a frequency of 15, you're spending far too much money. That is really inefficient spend. But sometimes, even if you were to cut the budget right off at its knees and drop the budget by like 3/4, it still won't recover. It still won't come back because it's like Meta identified this very tiny group of users in your whole ecosystem. So let's say your ecosystem is this big, like huge, and your retargeting campaign is sort of at this small segment here. They're the purchasers in this huge group. These small people here are the purchasers that Meta has found and identified in your big group. And now your budget is just funneled to these people. But if your frequency gets to 15, Meta is targeting this many people. And sometimes it won't come out of that. You can cut the budget back to almost nothing and the frequency is barely going to change because it's like Meta gets stuck in a loop and it's just going hard with every dollar you give it at these same people again and again and again. So you're just better off not scaling a middle of funnel campaign. If you are retargeting your Facebook engagers, your Instagram engagers, your email list, website, traffic, who else? Video viewers. If you're retargeting these people and your frequency is if your frequency in a 7-day window is anywhere between like 2 and 4, don't up your budget. You probably at a sweet spot. In fact, you want to make sure you keep an eye on that because you're going to probably need some more top of funnel traffic to start coming in and feeding that retargeted group to make sure Meta keeps it at a comfortable level. It doesn't get too big with frequency drops to like 1. But it doesn't also get so tight that the frequency gets to like 15. So one thing I would encourage you not to do is to scale a middle of funnel campaign because you need all the top of funnel traffic to be feeding it constantly. That's the most important. If you're going to turn off a campaign, turn that middle of funnel one off and only have top of funnel because you can recapture a lot of these people through your email. I talk about the combination of email and ads in probably almost every episode. It is fundamental to how I've grown my business is the partnership of ads and email together. So if you are wondering about where to save some money in your ads, turn off any middle of funnel you have and concentrate the middle of funnel efforts purely through email and through a pop-up on your website and capturing that targeted traffic when they come to your website. Those top of funnel users come into your website to join your pop-up and then send a newsletter at least once a week, like bare minimum. Ideally twice a week, you should be sending them. I would send them twice a week to a small group. So a larger group for one email, a smaller targeted group for a second email. And then that's how you nurture through that middle of funnel users instead of on Meta. So I just want to encourage you to try and just hold back from the temptation to scale your middle of funnel because it's real. You see the results cost per purchase and you're just like, wow, that's incredible. Imagine if I got 10 more like that. You might get 10 more at $9 per purchase, but you also may find that campaign is exhausted and tanked in just a few days' time when the frequency blows right out. Number 6, this is my last one. Test small and scale smart. I am the baby budget expert. Like I am known for being a baby budget Facebook ad specialist. I'm a huge advocate that you can succeed on Meta whether you spend $15 a day or $150 a day. And my episode, what number is it about that? Episode 139 is all about how to spend $15 per day or $150 per day on Meta. At the moment, myself and my e-commerce store, I'm spending about $190 a day, but I have definitely gone through periods where I was spending about $15 a day as well. You can succeed with both, but they take vastly different strategies involved. But when you're starting, you can absolutely start with a small budget per day to test and find your winners. Remember the winners I talked about that give you room in your cost per purchase result to scale. Testing always beats guessing, and data always beats our emotions. This 100% of the time. So testing absolutely beats guessing, and data absolutely beats our emotions. And I'm on the emotional fence this week because a suite of ads that I started 3 days ago have not found their feet yet at all. None of them have had a purchase on them yet after 72 hours, which is kind of like my window to start. Like, I expect to see something on day 4. If there's nothing on day 4, something is really wrong. So I've looked in that ad account so many times, that one campaign so many times the last 3 days to see what's going on. And I think it's telling me there's no winners in that suite of creatives. It's really disappointing because I spent a whole day putting all of those new creatives together. So to come to terms for myself as a business owner that all those creatives might be trash, and there was 8 of them, that's a hard pill to swallow. But like, what am I going to do about it? It's Meta. Meta is the platform. I'm on Meta's rules, and you are too. There's no point trying to fight against the platform we are working with. The sales I get come from Meta. Most of my new customers, brand new first-time customers, come from Meta, and most of yours will too, or can, if you advertise or you don't advertise yet, but you want to. They can come from Meta, but we need to be far more creative led and a little more, for me, lots more hands off on being tied to how good a piece of creative is and holding on to it for too long. So like I said, the sales I have had in the last few hours that I was excited about when I first heard my little Shopify notification go off, when I looked, I'm like, oh, they're from the email I sent, which is also great. But like, those ads, this suite of ads is killing me. So I need to go in. Tomorrow is my deadline. I'm letting them run for one more day. So tomorrow will be day 5 of these brand new ads that I've only been, like, I just built them last week and launched them 5 days ago. Tomorrow's my last day to decide if any of those metrics look good or if I have to turn all of them off and start a whole new suite again. That's the real struggle. I'm sharing you the real struggle. That is absolutely a struggle for me this week, for sure. And you may be finding the same. So that's what this episode is all about. What I have learned in spending $250,000 on ads inside Meta, either my own money or managing my clients' ad accounts in the last 4 years. And I'm pretty sure it's way over $250,000, but I didn't really go back to look in minute detail, so it was a bit of a rough guess. But if you're stuck yourself, I suggest you go and look at your creative, build some new creative, and launch some new creative. If you feel like your ad account is stuck, if your results are stuck, and if your results are too expensive. Also listen to episode 139, which I mentioned before, but also episode 138 about why advertising like now on Meta matters more than ever before. So advertising on Meta now absolutely matters more than ever before. So these numbers can be a bit nuts. If you haven't advertised before, you don't advertise a lot, then maybe if $250,000 in ad spend is crazy, crazy high to you, it certainly is a lot of money. If I actually think about that in actual money, not just figures on a piece of paper, it is a lot of money. But the real win will come for you with having a strategy and some creatives to support your brand and getting you some sales, customers, and data to tell you what to do next. You need some data to direct your next steps in Meta. Please reach out to me for a discovery call. It's free. You can chat with me for 20 minutes about what you're experiencing on the platform, what your struggles are with email marketing or with Meta ads. You can literally put a discovery call straight in my calendar. So if you head to the website and go to the tab that says book with me, work with me, I think it says, you can book a free discovery call. You can just pick a time in my calendar and put the Zoom appointment straight in there. Tell me a bit about what's going on with your brand and we can chat for 20 minutes for free. And I can give you some advice on what to do next. And maybe we can work together on a project window. I don't do retainers for brand new clients. I want you to feel confident in working with me one-on-one for like a 1-month project window to start with. So you're not locking into a contract, which you often need to do with an agency. That can be really scary, and especially if you don't know what the results are going to be, or if you even trust these people to begin with. So we can just work together for 1 month on a single project and get you some data, some results, and some clarity, and help you feel like you're actually moving in the right direction. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. As always, keep learning.